the end of the day.
It's Mel.
And me. You wanna know
How we did it.
You wanna know how we do it. You wanna know
How we
we're
doing
doing
it.
Welcome to the Mel and Me podcast.
At the end of the day.
All right. So let me take a sip. A little Moroccan tea.
Right.
So it's about that time. It's that time, right?
It's that time. It's that time.
It's that time. So we're about to do this. What time is it? It is time for the Mel and Me, the podcast.
Yes.
It's our first podcast. We're doing this. Camera's actually rolling right now. It's going to be a little bit awkward because it's our first time doing this, and we were
Right.
just kind of sitting before the camera started rolling, trying to get our last minute game plan together. And we just gonna go through this thing and kind of see how it goes. I'm gonna try to keep from being silly. I'm a very serious guy, to be honest. Most of the time, she like you laugh, you're like I'm full of it already.
Right.
So anyway, but it's a nice balance though.
Oh, yeah.
So, welcome to the Mel and Me podcast.
Yes. Well,
And we are we doing this thing.
we are.
Never thought that I might until recently. I remember just back, we were just talking about it before we rolled the cameras back beginning of June, when this idea just suddenly dawned on me about doing this thing. And it was June 1st, I think it was. And I just, suddenly got an idea finally about maybe pursuing this thing. Now, in the past, like over the years even, I've had people, I've had people many times say things to me like, man, when you writing a book? Or you should write a book, or I'm still waiting on that book. Some of you out there know who you are because you've actually been people that have said that to me behind the scenes, whether it be in person or via inbox or something like that. You've asked me about writing books. You mentioned to me about doing podcasts. I've even had a couple propositions of people saying that they'd be interested in doing a podcast with me or those types of things. But to be honest, I never really. I guess I haven't. It's not that I hadn't really seen myself doing such a thing. But I tend to be one. I really don't like a lot of attention on myself, regardless of what some people might perceive about my particular personality or whatever. But you would say I stay to myself a lot.
Yeah.
I'm really reserved. I'm a solo kind of dude. Don't really put myself out there too much. I don't like to, and so I think that has kind of, even though I'm never one who's really at a loss for words. Well, when I have a topic to speak about or something that I want to engage on, I'm never really at a loss for words.
Yep.
And so I think people see that and they kind of think that, oh yeah, you'd be perfect for a podcast or a radio show or something like that. But, I just don't like the attention like that, to be honest. So even to do this, I think is somewhat of a stretch.
Yeah, for me.
But being a creative, and that's really my thing. I think I like to be more behind the scenes, a creative type of guy, because that's me. I'm more so a creative than anything than being out front. I'd rather have others out front and me be the creative energy behind it, right? And you I'm not telling you nothing you don't know about me.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
but yeah, but I think after the boy, graduated and obviously is on his way to college and stuff like that, I got to thinking, I was like, damn, we gonna have to find something to do.
Yes.
and I know we pretty much stay to ourselves for the most part, and you very much so, with your small to non-existent circle.
Very non-existent.
But well, you have
I have a few,
few people in
and
your
I
life and
prefer, yeah,
stuff like that.
that
But
works just fine.
just thinking about that, I was like, I don't know what it was that made me just wake up that morning or whatever and just be like, you know what, I think we'll go ahead and do this. And I think too, because you have been behind the scenes for so long over the years, and it's like, most people who know us and who really know us, they know that you pretty much are the person, you're kind of like the Wizard of Oz, the man behind the curtain or the woman behind the curtain or whatever. And all they see is me. All they have seen is me or heard was me. But obviously, you have a voice of your own and a very strong voice. And a lot of times, you have been, the mind behind me in many ways, as far as like, my grounding and stuff like that. So I just think it would have been good. At the time, I think I felt like, I was like, you know what, I think we can do this. So I put it out there. I went on our social media and I just put a feeler out there.
Yeah.
I was just like, so what do y'all think if I decided to put together a podcast with Mel, toward the end of the year? And I was like third quarter, like fall of this year, something like that. And I got some responses. It's probably about 30 or so responses and stuff like that. I've learned that I can put certain things on my social media and I can get people to show up. And I know I get other stuff. A lot of stuff that I put up, people won't show up. And it's just because it's it's kind of like that third rail, on the subway line or whatever, because I tend to have a lot of, when I do, commentaries and stuff that are along the social or political lines and stuff like that, or just some smart alecky, that I'm putting out there, that I know people are not going to touch, but it's more important for me for people to just see it. Whether they react to it or not is not my concern.
Exactly.
Because I know it's still flowing somewhere, and even if one person, sees it or whatever, then that's perfectly okay with me.
Right.
And so, but I put this out there, and I know typically whenever I put posts out there that involve you, or like even or something like that, people react to it. When it's just me, maybe people just don't like me.
I don't think it's that.
It could be.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. Yeah.
But nevertheless, also not my concern. I mean, I know who I am. I appreciate people, and I hope people appreciate me for who I am.
Right.
So that's never a real concern. So anyway, put it out there, and people responded, and I was like, we'll see. Maybe do it. But then when I presented the idea to you, and you seem to like just gravitate toward like right away, like, wow, yeah, let's do it. which was actually a little bit surprising to me.
I know, considering, I don't necessarily like to be on the camera doing a whole lot of talking, but I can run my mouth.
Yes, you can.
Don't get it twisted.
and anybody out there that's ever had a conversation with you, whether in person, on the phone, or whatever,
I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to say what needs to be said. So it's neither here or there. But yeah, I mean, it was interesting. Like I said, when you brought the concept to me, and I was just like, oh, okay. And I guess because we watch so much YouTube anyways, that's another thing. I'm like, this looks real interesting.
Yeah, we just finished watching the podcast, as a matter of fact, before we came up here.
Right.
I ain't going to call it out because they ain't paying me no money, and I'm not getting any promotion from it. So, but maybe one day, who knows? Maybe there's some collaboration. Let me take a sip of this tea. We got some Moroccan tea that the daughter brought back from Morocco, actually from Morocco, that we taking we can have. Now we sipping tea. We won't be spilling no tea up in here. At least not no time soon. Or we'll be measured and careful, about any tea that we engage in.
Right.
I'm just thinking about it because you got all these. You guys, so there's enough of that out there. Podcast and stuff out there just saturated with all the tea dropping, man. I tell you. And
Yes.
so I will have to work from time to time to keep my funny side, my absurd side under wraps. You know, I try to keep a balance of the serious and stuff. You know,
Well, I got a
and
goofy
the
side,
funny.
so that's just
Oh
me
yes,
and who I am.
and we
And I'm not hiding.
we'll and I'm sure those who know you from your past, and we're gonna get into that a little bit in here in a little bit. But yeah, you definitely got the yes. We'll just leave it at that. I get a chance to see it
Yeah.
all the time and reminder of it.
Yeah.
But you know, I have mine that I bring to the table too, and don't get it twisted. I mean, we have a lot of fun with each other, and that's kind of been part of the secret sauce and everything, you know, and so that's a good thing. So, who are we? You know, who are we, Mel and me? I posted that the other day, and it every time I say it, it just kind of it feels like Dr. Seuss or something like that. You know, it's like, you know, I don't like green eggs and ham, Sam I am, right? Mm-hmm. I don't like, how's it go? I don't like bacon. I don't like eggs here. I don't like them there.
I don't
like them anywhere,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It just reminds me of Dr. Seuss. But anyway, but that actually is, I thought that would be a good topic or a good title for our first episode. It's like, who are we? Mm-hmm. Mel and me, you know, and the thing is, I think, you know, so I'll get into that in a second, but just basically, you know, who are we as individuals, and more importantly, who are we as a unit, right? And so that's what I mean when I say, who are we? So, you know, in the abstract sense, you know, kind of like, you know, like my man said, I forget the Tribe Called Quest back in the day. In the abstract sense, you know, think about that. But yeah, in the abstract sense, who are we? So, you know, obviously, we've been married how many years now? Not that I don't know,
31.
right? So, and that's crazy right there when you just think about it, because you like 31 years, and like, well, sometimes when I tell people that, they look at me like I'm crazy. It's like, you know, I realize, you know, we look old. We're starting to look older now, and like even when I look at my head and stuff like that.
You, not me.
No, but you starting to look old too. See them wrinkles right there coming up on your
Okay,
head.
the wrinkles have been there.
Right.
They've been there even
Right.
from our earlier
But
days. Yeah.
don't trip. You starting to look old too. But we're obviously aging and stuff like that. But you know, when I tell people, it's like, you know, man, I've been married like 31 years, man. They like, what? I can't believe it. You don't look old enough to have it. And like, yeah, I am. Yeah, right. But when you just think about that, man, you know, we've been married 31 years, and we've been together 33 years. So it's been like we got together 2 years before we actually got married, right? So, sorry. I have 2 kids.
Yep.
1 boy, 1 girl. Last kid is on his way out to college in a couple weeks.
Yep.
That time flies.
Quickly.
The time flies. So I just think when I talk to other people, you know, that we know, whether it be colleagues or associates and stuff who have younger kids, you know, some of them are, you know, below preteen age even, you know, and, you know, those others who have those who are teenagers and approaching young adults, but especially those who are preteen to teenagers and stuff. They're like, man, it seems like they have so much longer to go. But when I think back to where we were, you know, not only with our oldest, but, you know, the youngest, you know, when I remember when the oldest went off to college, he was barely at my chest.
Right.
And now he's standing only 1 inch shorter than I.
Yep.
At 18, right? And that time, I think about the time, man, just how quickly it has gone by. It's just, it's crazy.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, obviously having the 2 kids, you know, and being 2 career people, myself, you know, as a corporate technical professional and IT professional, I've been in that field for close to, about a little bit more than 20 years now. Yeah. I entered the field like in late 2000. I entered that field, and I've been in the field as a corporate IT professional since that time. And as far as you,
I'm a social worker and been that for about 15 years now, and I love it.
yeah. So and you know, I remember prior to becoming a social worker, okay, and we'll, you know, these kind of stories I guess will come up, but you know, that wasn't your initial plan, was to go into social work.
No, it was
Right.
not. It was actually nursing, to be honest.
Which coincidentally, our daughter is a new registered nurse. She just recently finished her master's degree in nursing. In nursing, she holds a master of nursing degree, and she's a registered nurse here in the Metro Atlanta area. And so she
Yeah.
kind of is fulfilling, you know, doing some unfinished work that started out
Yeah.
being a dream of yours, right?
Yeah,
So-
actually went to the school that I applied to that I did not get accepted in because, you know, back then in the early 2000s, it was only like 40 to 100 students that they would accept into the nursing program just due to the shortage of professors to teach it. So I'm like, okay, I need to find something else to do. And didn't really even think about social work. Really didn't even know a whole lot about it in depth until I actually had to come up to do my internship when I was in school. So I had to find, you know, some place to do it, and I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, as I looked at the different, you know, areas that I can move into. And once I did my internships, then that's when I fell in love with it. I'm like, okay, because I knew from an early age that I wanted to, you know, work with families and stuff. I knew that, but I knew that I didn't necessarily want to be a teacher, but I knew that I wanted to work with families, but didn't really know what that would look like, you know, when I was a child. And so, you know, finding that career path, I was like, okay, now this is what I was talking about, what I was dreaming about, what I knew about from an early age. So that's what led me down that path.
So, but before you got to that point, though, we were doing the nursing thing. We went through the whole, you know, I forget how many years you went back to school to finish your degree, but
4.
you had to do a whole nother 4, even though you had the previous college,
Yeah.
previous years of college experience,
it was still 4.
and being my spouse while I was in the military all those years. So you basically had to put your stuff on hold
Right.
to be that, you know, that I don't want to say typical military wife, for lack of a better way of putting it, but that support system
Right.
in raising our first child while I was at sea deployed away and stuff like that.
Right.
But then, you know, things happen in our lives, and that, man, this, when I go back and look over all the stuff that just transpired that put us in the position to where you ended up going back to college in the first place, because if you think back, you were in banking before that, right?
Yes.
And
Did that for some years.
and going through that situation, which now when we look back in retrospect with what happened in the crash of 2008 and what we found was behind all of the mortgage fraud and stuff, and that was the industry you were working in,
Right.
and how you lost those positions because
Right.
you were trying to operate with ethics, and at
Right.
the time you had no idea that you were in the midst of a lot of shenanigans that was going on that led to the housing crash, and you're doing things by the book, and banking
Right.
presented a problem for those who were trying to run the game, basically, right?
Exactly.
And so you lost those jobs, and you found yourself in a position when you lost 2 jobs in like a 6-month period, going between
Yeah,
2
it was
mortgage
back-
companies.
back to back. And
Right.
you told me, you said, okay, just go back to school and get your degree. I'll
Right.
take care of everything. You just go back and get your degree. And that's when I made the, you know, took advantage of that opportunity to be able to do that, and did it while I was pregnant too.
And that's the other thing, because I almost said you popped up pregnant. I guess the proper way to say it is we ended up pregnant.
Right.
So we got the surprise of your being pregnant, and then at that same time, I had the issue with my health.
Right.
All
exactly.
that happened
of
at the
that.
same time.
Right.
So
Yeah.
and that's stuff that's gonna come out in different episodes as well. I'm sure we'll get along those lines of discussion. But yeah, we had to do a complete reset, and this would have been around 2004.
Yeah.
Around
Yeah.
2004,
Yeah.
that you had not finished your degree. You had those years of college at different universities and
Right.
stuff like that. But then just supporting me and my thing in the military. And then after I got out, you still hadn't had a degree, but you had been working.
Right, I was working.
And then so we were just trying to figure out, what to do from there. And even though we were on some shaky ground with my health at the time, I did have a decent, job. I was working for the city at that point. I had taken a massive pay cut because, man, before that, things were going really, really great for us here when we first relocated to Atlanta. And then all that stuff started to happen. And so you went back to school full time.
Yep.
Pregnant.
Yep.
And back then I remember it was really bad because you had picked up a lot of weight and you were having to walk from the parking.
It was rough.
At
It was
school.
it was a rough pregnancy, just with all of the complications and stuff, and of course, nearly having the early stages of a miscarriage.
Yeah, we were supposed to lose
so
them.
we went through that,
Yeah.
and I just, that came out of nowhere, that was really a bummer. And we went and they said, hey, it's really nothing that we can do. Basically, go back home, and then, because you're in the early
Wait.
stages of a miscarriage and wait, and so it was I knew then that I was having a boy. I said, because when I went back and they said,
He's still there.
He's still there. I was like, what? I was like, oh my God, yes, this is going to be a boy. But then just all of the heartburn, acid reflux, just everything.
And
just,
the 235 pounds.
Actually, I think I was
You
like,
was like
224,
224. Like that.
Yeah,
And
I
having,
was, I was a place.
I remember you saying you had to walk like an
I
hour.
did.
You had to get there an hour before class because
Yeah,
it would
just to
take
be
you that
able to
long
walk.
to get from the parking
Yeah.
lot to the
and
the
then
classroom.
and then all the way up through, I went to school all the way up until I had them. Took the 2 days off, and then went right back 2 days after having them. I was right back in school
Right.
because again, I knew that I needed to graduate on time. I'm like, I can't have any delays. I have to
Right.
graduate on time, and so that was a lot, but
Yeah.
in the end, it was worth it.
Finish that degree.
Yes.
In human services.
Yes.
And that's what
Right.
got you into that field because
Right.
you just couldn't get into. They didn't have the space at the time. The nursing industry
Right.
at the time was just
It was very limited. The spacing was very limited.
because a lot of the instructors, rather than go be instructors, they opted to chase the nurse practitioner role
Yes.
because that
Yes.
was the money. They could
Yeah.
make that money there, and so they
Right.
didn't want to go into the colleges to teach clinicals to nursing students. And there was a
Exactly.
shortage.
Yes.
So you just couldn't get in, even though you had I remember you had very strong package and very
Yeah.
strong recommendations
But
and
it's
stuff.
extremely
But
competitive,
it
as it
wasn't
still
enough.
is to this day.
Yeah.
But they allow more applicants to come in now,
Right.
more students to come in now versus back then.
Right, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. And so you ended up though, and I've watched you over the years, working in the field of human services and doing what you do, a very important job that you do. And I think if people could see you at work on a daily basis, and the work that you do on behalf of the children in this entire state, because your team obviously manages that particular piece for the entire state, and it's very important work. And I get a chance to see you do it, and I get a chance to hear you. I get a chance to hear you from downstairs up here. You say you be working a lot of times, but sometimes I don't think you do.
No, I'll be
Maybe you
working
just
all the
have
time.
You have too good of a time then sometimes, or maybe it's just your relationships with
Yeah.
your team.
That's what it is.
Stuff like
Yeah.
that, so.
Yeah, good relationships.
So but that's basically who we are. There's obviously a whole lot more to us that we can get into. I'm just basically, like when we came up with the idea to do this particular podcast, as you know, I started immediately planning the set, right? So I had to do all the set design and stuff like that, and we spent you and I, kind of planning this thing out, going through different mic systems and camera solutions and computer purchases and stuff like that, just trying to get things up, and it was a real pain.
Yes.
Trying to put everything together, sending stuff back, testing it out. It's not working properly. This got to go back. So we worked together on this whole thing. But, obviously with my doing, the set design for everything, it gave me a chance to kind of dig in, but I say that to say, obviously, from the creative perspective, it gave me a chance to be a creative, right? Because
Right.
that's a large part of who I am. You know, we got this whole left brain, right brain thing, you know, happening that you obviously are very familiar with. But you know, that's me, obviously. You know, many facets of to my personality, I guess, things that I like to do. Obviously, you know, you dealt with the music thing for many years, you know, and which ironically, and we're going to get into, which is how we met in the first place. Oh, and bittersweet, bittersweet. While I'm think, well, we'll get to that in a second. But you know, you dealt with the music thing, you know, over the years, and many years of my having the studio in the house, and you know, going and spending hours and days sometime in there, and you not really seeing me or hearing from me, and having to juggle that with career, whether that be when I was in the military,
Yeah.
still, you know, because I was doing music obviously when I was in the military, and I was working long hours there. And then even after that time, you know, for years after, you know, just running the studio in the house and being a part of bands and stuff like that, and you know, supporting artists, and you know, playing in their bands, and being out late at night, coming in and out with equipment and stuff like that, you know, all times of night. And so you've gotten a chance to see that, and you've gotten a chance to see the many other different things that I do, you know, whether it be, you know, with the, you know, you've been a large force behind that, right? Because I have
Yeah.
not been able to do any of that stuff without you. Because
Right.
obviously, let's just look back to the first time I went and spent all that money on that music equipment when I was in the when I was in the Navy still, right? And at the time back then, it's
It's a
like
lot
to
of
put
money.
put the, like about 20 grand, I think it was,
Right.
right? And I was
Yes.
making nowhere near the money that I make today.
Right.
So, in fact, that's when I was delivering pizzas.
Right.
I took that job delivering pizzas
Right.
so that I could pay for that equipment,
Ooh,
delivering for
yes, those
Domino's.
days.
I was in the Navy delivering pizzas, paying for music equipment so that I could produce albums, you know, that I thought I was going to become some big music star like we all do back then. So that's just crazy, man.
Yeah.
And you talking back, that would have been back in
Yeah, it was in the
1996.
90s. Yeah, it was in the mid
That
90s.
was 95,
Yeah.
you know, 20 grand in 96 when you only make it like mid 30s, something like that.
Right. Right.
It was, but again, and this is the genius of, you know, of you, because, you know, from the very beginning, there's always been like, whatever it is that we done, you got the pen and pad out trying to figure out how we're
to
going to
work
make
for
it work.
money.
So, and of course, and this is going to be a key part of some of the things that we talk about. But it's just weird. Like when I'm, you know, like I told you before, there are going to be certain things that are going to come up when we're doing these podcasts, and things that we just haven't thought about in years, or
Right.
certain things that we didn't, you know, certain lines of discussions that we just never had. You know, that'll be
Right.
surprises to both of us,
Right.
and just remind us of certain things, you know.
Yeah.
But I can't help but think back to that, man. Those were some crazy times, man. Spending all that money, opening up accounts at Guitar Center, and all that kind of, and
Yes.
the local music shops, man, going and loading up on all that different music equipment. So you were there for all of that, and then the other ventures, you know, whether it be, you know, designing clothes and bow ties, and doing the photography thing, and you know, what else did I do? I
The
thought,
with the little robots on.
oh, that never got off the ground. That got derailed because of COVID.
Right. That,
Right,
Yeah.
with my
That
yeah.
was
So
a
I
nice
have all
amount.
these different interests and stuff like that.
That's costly.
That's
It's
costly,
very costly.
but thankfully, we've been in the position.
Right? Yeah.
We positioned ourselves, and we managed ourselves thanks to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like to say, I'm the strategist and you're the tactician, right?
Yeah, because I'm not creative, so that's just not me. It's not my forte. So I mean, maybe in some things, maybe small, but definitely not to the level as you. So that's
Yeah.
why I mean, I know what my strengths are, and it's not that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, so that's who are we, Melanie?
Right.
Right. So,
Yep.
I like to think about when we set out to do this podcast, right? You know, whenever you if you're doing a podcast, you should have a message, right? And so, you know, and that's something that I've learned from watching other people's,
Right.
podcasts and stuff like that. Like you just don't want to get in front of a camera and turn on the camera and just, well, a lot of people do. This
Right.
social media, it's a social media age, man.
Yes. Which is why
You
I'm
got a
not
lot of
on
people
social
doing
media.
all kind of crazy stuff
That's
out
why I'm
there.
not on
They,
it, 'cause
they'll
I-
turn the camera on and they'll just do whatever. It's just, I'm not even going to get into it, but I think being of a more serious nature, I guess, or having that side at least, having something to offer. You like to have a message, and I was trying to come up, and we obviously brainstorm around briefly some things, right? But one thing that I remember watching on one particular video, it was talking about like, so you want to create a podcast type video, that they talked about that you should kind of have a specific subject matter that you should work around. And we have certain ones that we watch, whether it be on investing or stuff, or like we watch some that are on like music, like
Right.
certain ones like the one we just watched a little while ago, that deals with specific genres of music, or maybe they just focus on songwriting or production, or the
Right.
different things like that, or maybe it's a political commentary type podcast where that's all they do, right?
Right.
Or even fitness or makeup, like you watch, or on hair, right?
Yep.
So, by the way, you got a new hairstyle as of last night. We took and kind of did up for you. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You got hair again back for the
I'm so happy.
yeah.
I am so
but
happy.
yeah. But you can have it either way. I mean,
Yeah.
fortunately you
Yeah.
look good with or without hair. So
But I'm happy to have the
for
hair.
the time being, right?
Yes.
We're just gonna make the most of it while we got it.
Exactly.
So but as far as subject matter, and I thought about it, I was like, I wouldn't want to just lock us in to one particular subject.
Right.
Right? Because obviously we sit around the house all the time, and over the years, we have conversations about all types of stuff.
Exactly.
Anything and everything. And thankfully I have an opportunity to have you and the others in the house who are still here for the time being, to be that the vent box, I guess, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And I know why you laughing, because you know how I get to go off.
Yeah.
That I can't say certain things
Right.
out in social media or express myself the way that I
Right.
really like to
Yeah.
express myself, that I have the comfort of doing
Oh, we all have those
in your prayer. And
moments.
and I'm sure even anyone,
Oh,
the
yeah,
people
for
out
sure,
there,
for sure.
they have their ways as well, right?
Right.
But so we engage, and we get to engage ourselves, in the most comprehensive and uncensored manner at times.
Right.
We'll call it, So being as how, we have a broad range of conversations. And that's also another, I think, is another ingredient in the secret sauce, right? Is just being able to communicate with each other, just having something to talk about on a day-to-day basis to sustain
Important.
your interactions and your chemistry, your bond, that
Yeah.
type of stuff.
Yeah.
And so I thought it might be best if we just kind of give the world, if you will, a peek into our dynamic. So regardless of what it is that we're discussing, whether it be, something of a financial nature, or whether it be something of a social nature, whether it be something of a family type nature, whatever it is, that we do it within a framework or from the standpoint of us as a unit, right? So, just I think that that's very important. Like the message, I think, if anything, is that we just, it's more so our shared perspective, I guess, if you will, how we kind of approach things, how we
Right.
do things, and
As a unit.
right? Because, okay, when I think about myself, sometimes I go back and I try to imagine myself. My path, what my path would have looked like, or what my path would look like even presently, if I didn't have, like, say, the grounding of somebody else, right? And, and I kind of know, I know me, as I think we should all know thyself, right? I'm sure I would be probably a much different person, and definitely in a much different place, had I not had the grounding of another person. And that's something I realized early on about myself.
Me too.
But I think one thing I'm sure of, I do not think that I do not think that I would have achieved, for lack of a better way of saying it, the level, of when we can just assume that that means of success or whatever, however you want to call it or whatever. I don't think I don't think I would have gotten to where I have gotten to at this point in life had I not had that, right? So I think our message is, at least from my perspective, is that you have, when it comes, and don't get me wrong, what works for me is not going to work for the next person, right? And I understand that what works for us is not going to work for the next person. What works for us is not necessarily, the rule for the next person, right? But what I think is that I am of the opinion that a person, when it comes to life, and it's crazy because I'm learning more about this every day, it seems. I think that we can get further along in life, especially in the present world, because it's a very tough world that we live in. I think when we have someone, or we find someone, or we can connect with someone, right, who compliments us, they may not necessarily be the same as we are. They may not, you know what I'm saying? They may not see things as we do. They may not have the same personality. They may be polar opposites, kind of like we are in many ways. We are very different in many ways.
Yeah.
In most ways, I think.
Right.
In our personality dynamics. But I think there's certain things that I think each of us possess that lock into each other. Right. And I think we recognized that many, many years ago. And through it all, right, I think we've been able to sustain because of those locking elements. And I just think, and I'll get your perspective on it in a second. I'm not going to talk forever. I want to hear. But from my perspective, yeah, it's just that. It's just that I think that you can achieve things as a unit when you have somebody who's solid standing with you and moving through things with you.
Oh, yeah.
You can make it much further than you ever would have on your own. And there's a lot wrapped up into that.
Oh, for sure.
But that's what I think. So I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I mean, I agree, because I often think, where would I be, had you not, it was like, had you not.
Where would you be without me? Yeah.
Right,
Be without me.
I think
I'm
back
just
to those
playing.
days when I'm on the phone calling, I don't have any money, I can't buy any food, I'm hungry. You Western Union, sending me money through Western Union.
And I didn't have any money,
I know.
relatively speaking, because I was on the military salary, right? But relatively
still
speaking,
sending me money. It's like, hey, I'm like,
you got me looking like a simp.
but I'm just
Right now.
saying, it's just like,
I was
but
young.
you
I was like
understood
I was
the
19
situation.
at the time.
Yeah.
19 or 20. 19,
Yeah,
20.
I mean, but you understood my circumstances, and it was like, okay, I'm gonna do whatever it is that I need to do. And I often think, okay, had we not gotten married, where would I be right now? What would I be doing? What would my situation even be looking like? I mean, who knows? And I'm like, I don't even want to necessarily even have that thought, because I'm like, it's just no telling. So I agree, that having a partner, that someone that you can share your life experiences with, be it communicating with, building with, talking to, and I think that having opposite personalities and stuff, a lot of times that can be for the best. I'm not one of, okay, this person needs to think like me, act like me, because I think you need to have those differences in a relationship. I think that's what makes it work, bringing that together. Like you said, we're opposite in many different ways, but when it comes to the core things in the relationship, the major important things, we do see eye to eye on that. There's
Right.
no differences in that. And I think that is what's important. The little smaller things, okay, whatever. But for the major things that's going to be important to maintaining that relationship, we see eye to eye on that.
Right.
And to me, that's what's important. And I think if you have someone there, that you're able to, have that with, I think that's good.
Okay. All right. So let's just talk about how we connected in the first place. Now this is interesting in retrospect, especially given the fact that we live in the world that we do today,
Right.
in the age of social media, where you can reconnect with everybody, not only from your present, but from your past.
Well, I'm not on social media, so I really wouldn't know.
Right. And that's a good thing.
And
That's
I
been
cannot, because nobody would be a deal with me. I wouldn't have no friends.
Nah, that's not true.
wouldn't.
Why you say that though? Oh, because you don't like the nonsense? Because you tend to be no nonsense?
Very, and I'm gonna say whatever's gonna be to be said, and then and again, then people will fall out because of that, and so I'm like, I don't have time for all of that, so that's why I just choose not to get on there at all, and then it just, to me, it would take up too much of my time.
It does take up
with all of that back and forth.
Right,
So, yeah.
but you get a chance to connect with people from your present as well as your past, so people know you.
Yeah.
And so we connected, and I just want to, well, I'll get to that in a second, but we go all the way back to high school.
Right.
So we played in the high school band together. That's why I met you. Between that and your family, who I was good friends with when I transferred to that school from my other high school.
Yeah.
That I ended up transferring from because of some bully that I ended up getting into a situation with, and ended up getting suspended from the school because of a violent act that took place in the classroom on my behalf after I got tired of being bullied by him. But that led me to the high school that I came to, where I ultimately met you in the band. You were
a clarinet player.
And you were a terrible clarinet player.
I was the second chair.
You made it up to second chair, but remember, you used to be known as what? Squeaky.
That was because of the reed.
That was because because of you.
The reed was old, and you already know how those reeds and
But
stuff,
wait a
they
minute,
get old. You don't change them that often.
But look,
it'll make the clarinet
But
squeak.
you replaced the reed, though. The thing is to replace the reed.
I did. I didn't soak it long enough. So
how long were you in band for?
a few years.
That's what I'm saying. So a reed, so you didn't soak it long enough. How long did it take it to soak?
I wasn't
3 years.
but I wasn't squeaking all the time, though.
Oh, but I'm saying you got good over time. Well, you got decent over time. Now you weren't.
Let's be clear, good, like you said.
No, you were decent, and I'm sure some people who are watching this podcast will be able to attest about the level of your skill at that point. You were good. You got to be good. That's why you were second chair.
Right.
You weren't first chair.
Right. I didn't claim to be first chair.
You didn't make it the first chair.
Right. I remember.
Okay,
it.
but I'm just saying.
Right.
But anyway, you were known as Squeaky.
Right.
And you used to sit this close up on the
vision problems. Let's
right.
Put that out there.
You used to sit this close up on the
problems.
On the music stand.
To be transparent, my vision is bad.
Well, some people saw the little promo that I did when we when we did the test run, so they know how blind you are, right? And for those of you who don't know, you can always go to our. By the way, like, subscribe, share, comment. But if you go to any of our platforms, social media platforms, it could be Facebook, Instagram, or whatever, you'll see what she looks like with her glasses on. So it's all good. We may actually do an episode with her wearing it one day.
That would be way down the road. That would be no time soon. Time soon. No.
So yeah. But anyway, so we met back in high school in the band, and just I want to take a minute to just speak on this because this is kind of a bittersweet day because even though it's our first podcast that we're filming, when I was going out today, got a call in my vehicle. I was traveling somewhere and I got a call, and it came from the cell phone of my mentor and someone who was a a really strong force in my early life, especially when I was in high school. And it actually goes back to, like I said, when I met her and connected with her, was our high school band teacher. We learned passed away earlier today. And so, yeah, it was not a, although it was not a, not a shock, because we got an opportunity to, spend time with him. Obviously I talked to him, just a couple weeks ago, but when we were back there, back in November, and we got the opportunity to see him, and it was really, different, seeing him in that particular state, stage in life, which is to be expected, when you reach a certain point and you're dealing with certain things. But nevertheless, just and he was a tough guy, right? Obviously.
Oh yes.
Very, very tough. And, in fact, he kicked you out of band at one point.
Yes, he did.
I think we all got kicked out of band at some point. Many of us got kicked out. He let me back in because I was.
Did I get back in?
I think you got back in, but then he kicked you out again, and then you were gone that last time.
Yeah, I did get kicked out twice.
Yeah, you got kicked out twice.
I can't even
because
remember what I
you
did.
were expendable.
Wait a minute.
You, like you said, you were second chair, right?
Right.
And with that, you weren't first chair, you were second chair, so you were
And
expendable.
I was messing up too a lot.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
but you got to be pretty good.
Yes,
You got
I
to be
did.
pretty good.
Yes.
And of course, my being the best saxophone player in the band at the time, which I was, is just what it was. But so I was expendable too. But he let me back in, and I'm glad, because it turned out that, like I said, he was a pivotal part, of my life, in helping to instill, that love for the arts, especially music, and really seeking to understand music.
Yeah.
From a theoretical perspective, which, I think hasn't stuck with me over the years, because I hate the theoretical perspective of music, but more so from the artistic side and the different genres and, that type of thing, from the creative side of it and the feeling side of it, right? But, it was good to get the opportunity to spend that time, with him as his kids, and to
Right.
see the two of us,
Yeah.
still together,
Yeah.
and starting within that framework that he had in place for us, and then, building something together,
Yes.
and being able to go back and be in his presence and share in some of that with him.
Because he was happy to see that.
Absolutely.
Very happy to see
Absolutely.
that.
Absolutely. And it was really, it's still, like, to this day, man, just sticks with me, that side that we got, that emotional side of him that
Right.
we got to see, that we
Right.
never saw.
Right, because
Coming up.
yes, that was very, very good.
So that's great. So, this show definitely has to be dedicated to him and his memory.
Yes.
Tim Galloway.
Yep,
Rest in peace.
yep. Rest in peace.
And that's how we met. And like I was saying, I was interested in you early on when I didn't have anybody. I wasn't going with anybody, in the band, which everybody seemed to be going with somebody. And you actually had a crush on somebody in the band too.
Right.
We ain't gonna talk about that. No, we ain't gonna talk about that. We won't talk about it. But
Right.
the bottom line is that there was a certain individual that you liked in band, and
Yeah.
different people were. This individual from this section was dating the individual from this
Right.
section,
Yeah.
and that's just how it was, And
Oh,
we
yeah.
got to preface this that we were young. We
Right.
were young people. We were all young, right?
Right.
And because in the age of social media, you get a chance to interact with people from your present as well as people from your past, right? And so, we're all adults and went down our different paths and lives and stuff like that, but it was what it was,
Oh, yeah.
And, I ended up dating somebody that was dating another person in band previously. They broke up, and then I ended up, getting involved with them. But ultimately, you and I got together, and like I said, I actually liked you. I thought you were kind of good looking
And
back
I didn't
then.
know that.
Yeah, right. See, because I didn't have the confidence back then, because girls wasn't checking for me, coming up. I really wasn't. From the time I was a preteen, teenager, stuff like that, in grade school, high school, girls, they just were not checking for me. Now, my boys, my boys had all the girlfriends. Like, the crew that I rolled with, man, I had a couple light skin, curly hair kind of thing back in the day, the wavy hair thing. You know how it was back then.
Right.
You used to
Yeah.
kind of like that
Right.
too in dudes, right?
Yeah, that was the thing back then.
Right. But my boys, man, they had all the game, they had all the girlfriends and stuff. They were, a couple of them were like real tough guys, whatever. And girls back then, for some reason, they liked the real tough guys. And I've always had that kind of like that geeky side, even though I, grew up in the projects with everybody else and was just as mischievous as, some of the other dudes, but I still had kind of like that other side as well. And maybe I was just kind of annoying too, because I've always kind of been like a smart aleck, right? So I probably got on their nerves, and that's why they weren't checking for me. But I also don't think I was very attractive coming up. I was a late bloomer. I kind of view myself as being a late bloomer. So early on, I think I was just in the mindset of, I'm going to find me somebody and lock them down, and I'm going to build with that person.
Right.
I actually at one point had a relationship. I thought, that it would be a building situation. Like building a life with, right? I say building, and I automatically think back to the building that we refer to as the building in the projects, where we all lived. You didn't live, I lived, but I'm just thinking about that. But, I was in that mindset early on that, I'm going to find me somebody and build with. And so I think my approaches, when I finally started to, get the attention, if you will, of girls or girls who would give me a shot, that was the mindset I was in. And so I don't know if that might have been intimidating to someone at that age.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're 16, 17, you got some guy coming at you,
Right.
no, I want to marry you, girl, all that crazy stuff. No, we gonna, have this and that, and this and that. They look at you like you crazy, because all they see is what's in that moment, and they look around, you know what I'm saying? It's like, they think you, blowing smoke up, So that was it. So, later on, when we reconnected, I always had you in the back of my mind because we were so cool over the years. We were, from the time you were 14, I was 15 when I first met you, we were always friends, always cool and stuff.
Right.
Like I say, it was just that I just thought that there was a gullibility about you and somewhat of a goofiness that people used to speak to, and even myself at times. But the beautiful thing about that is I've gotten a chance to see you evolve, transcend, from being that person to the person that you are now.
Right.
And so, I think that looking back on it all, the paths that each of us took, and the people that, such and such was dating this person, or I was dating this person, or involved in a relationship, even when I got into a more serious relationship, I saw it as being that, at the time, it's just really kind of awesome when you look back over everything, but I do kind of think back to the time of how it was, even though we were all young. It just seems so crazy how how destiny kind of leads you. So I mean, what do you think about that?
As far as
Just just how we connected, how we hooked
connected.
up, and just the craziness of it all with different people in the band dating each other, and how
Well, I guess for me, because I was not one of the mindset back then of, okay, I'm looking for someone to, build a relationship with. And I guess, I don't know, maybe just, females back then, a lot of us then was just, okay, I can have a boyfriend. Because number one, I couldn't even have a boyfriend until I was 18. I mean, I can date, but it had to.
What's the difference?
It could be.
What's the difference?
What?
What's the difference between dating and having a boyfriend? They weren't calling it dating back then. We called it going together.
Well, dating, going out, whatever.
Going together.
Yeah.
Or were you really going out? Didn't we even have the money to go out with somebody?
That's the thing. I wasn't even going anywhere.
Exactly.
And so it was, okay, if you're not 18, okay, when I was 16, you can go out with someone, like to the movies or whatever.
I got you.
But then it couldn't be the same guy. It had to be a different guy.
What you mean couldn't be the same guy? Had to be a different guy.
Because the rationale was, if it's the same guy, you will develop feelings for him, and you can't have a relationship until you're 18.
Okay.
So it's not like, so that's why I was never the mindset, oh, okay, let me try to find someone that I could just go ahead and settle down with. I wasn't even thinking along those lines.
Right.
But when you called and then we reconnected back when I was, 18, you called me, hey, how's everything going or whatever. And then I was like, oh, okay. And then we got to talking, and you was like, I'm coming, going to be in, town or whatever. And then we went out. Then I was like, ooh, he looking good.
See, that's where the little bit of money will get you. The little bit of money I had, that military money, that's where to get you.
Ooh, you had the hot top fan. I was like,
polka dot shirts and all that kind of stuff.
Look, had that leather jacket when you came on. I was like, yes. And so I was like, oh, okay, because I think I ended up writing you a letter.
Okay.
And that's how we end up. I was like, oh, okay, we've been going out with that. We might as well go ahead and start dating. And then that's what we did from there. But I was never of that mindset. I just was like, you was like, oh, okay, hey, we can go ahead and hook up or whatever. And I was just like, oh, because we were friends and that connection was already there. I was like, oh, this is neat. This is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that was kind of how I thought about it. So I guess our mindsets was a little bit different back then. You were, like you said, you were already in the mindset of trying to find someone that you can settle down with. Mm-hmm. I don't really know what I was thinking. I was just like, okay, a relationship, but not really knowing even where it would go.
Right.
I just wasn't even thinking that far ahead.
Yeah. But I guess, so understanding the fact that I was in the military, right? A lot of times that comes along, certain things come along with that, right? Because military guys, they tend to settle at some point, pretty early on a lot of times, right? So I don't know if you kind of had that in the back of your mind that could be a potential. Okay.
I just wasn't even thinking, I just wasn't even thinking that far. I'm just thinking, okay, I'm now in a relationship. Hey, this is great.
Right.
That's as far as I thought about it.
Right, yeah.
Not knowing what it would lead. I mean, because again, I guess it's, back to my mindset, like you said, how I was, back then.
Yeah.
I'm 5-10 years down the road. The only thing I did know, like I say for sure, is pretty much the career path that I wanted to take. But as far as anything else, no.
Okay. Yeah, it was kind of, I guess technically could have been considered a rebound for me. I don't know. It might. I don't know how long of a time had passed since I had my breakup.
It was a few months.
So maybe it was a
rebound. It was a few months. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Well, here we are.
Right.
Today.
33 years
later. So, and with that, I think we have a bit to offer, by way of sharing in a podcast situation, right? Because we've gained a significant amount of experience in our path and our journey together. And so, and that leads me to what I hope people get, out of our podcast, which will be a weekly thing that we're going to do. We're not going to try to bite off more than we can chew, like some people. They put stuff out every day.
Oh no, it's too much.
It's a lot. We figure this week long, this hourly, weekly thing will be fine, and then who knows what can spin off from that. And we do invite those of you out there to like, share, subscribe to our channel and comment. We would like to grow this thing. Because we think we got a lot of good information to share and a lot of good times to be had, and sharing just our dynamic between the two of us, and we just hope, or I hope, that what people will take, from our podcast and stuff is just to get a sense of our perspectives, not so much, well, not only as individuals, right? And get a chance to see our personalities and stuff like that, as we move in and out of the different aspects of, who we are, I guess. But as a unit, that's the most important thing, because as a team and as a unit, because like I said earlier, I think that has been the key to my own personal growth. And I just think that, you can just get so much more accomplished, man, when you're moving as a unit. That's just, and so I hope that in all of the topics that we discuss, that people, and of course, this being the first one, this is kind of an introduction, an introductory type of podcast of, who are we at its most basic level.
Right.
But the topics that we discuss going forward, you know, no matter what space that topic is in, that people will always be able to go back to the fact of, okay, this is their core message. Okay, it's about, that shared perspective about how they attack or approach this particular scenario or these particular situations, or thoughts that they share on this, or, even though we may depart, in some ways, but there will always, again, like I say, be that point of locking,
Right.
if you will, and that's what I hope that people will get. What about you?
Right. And I think just to echo that, as we talk about different, what I consider to be kitchen table issues or for different families, again, we want to stress what works for us may not work for you. But what I hope is maybe you can take something of what we are saying in our approach and how we have handled situations, our approach with how we, deal with whatever circumstance that may come up, that it may be something you could employ within your own relationship, or if you're looking, to even get, into a relationship, maybe some things that you're considering, and you could probably take from this. So I think that would be important to me. Again, knowing that it may not necessarily work for you because it's working for us, but even if you're able to tweak it a little bit or whatever, then to get something out of it. We just feel that our journey and the journey that we've taken together as a couple, that we have a lot of what we feel to be valuable information that we would like to share, because it could be other couples out there that could be going through the same thing currently, or have gone through it, maybe trying different things now that hasn't worked, and so maybe hearing a different approach could possibly help you. So that would be my goal, is to just be able to provide and share our journey and the things that we've done and what we're doing, and how we approach and look at things, and then hopefully can be an inspiration to another couple out there, another family, or someone that's maybe looking to get into a relationship, because again, it's about being a unit.
And one thing I do want to be clear on is that I also don't want to send a message that this is aimed at couples.
Right.
We are a couple indeed.
Right.
But one thing that I don't think that one thing I don't want to do is to put forth the idea or the sentiment that
It's
a
strictly for
person who
couples.
is that a person who is
Right.
not in a relationship situation, or
Right.
is not a couple. Because remember, again, I talked about stuff where I was finding my way, right?
Right.
So this is just it's entertainment, it's information for anybody and everybody.
Oh,
Now
yeah.
it will be given a lot of times in the context of, because we've attacked things so much as a team.
Right.
So, but I mean, we're going to discuss all kinds of stuff, and it doesn't have you don't have to be a couple to
Not
appreciate
at all.
it.
Not at all.
Not at all. You don't have to be a couple to appreciate anything that we say, because at the end of the day, we're a couple, but we're also individuals. We're very
Right.
different individuals. So we just want to make sure that we're clear on that as well, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
and so we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up this first episode, man, and
Yes.
we've been able to pull it off, and I'm kind of surprised by it. Oh yeah, all right. So we got upcoming episodes.
Which will be
Next week we're gonna have episode 2, and what's up next? We're gonna talk Africa.
yes, Africa.
Yeah. So yeah, man. As some know, we've been kind of looking at this thing for the past few years. We actually took a trip to South Africa last year, and spent some time over there, and it was our first trip, because we've been kind of just researching the past few years. And of course, COVID made things very interesting. In fact, when we traveled over during COVID, and so we went over and got a chance to do some visits, some places like home communities and stuff like that, because we're getting ready to do something over there. We're getting ready to make some stuff happen. And so we're going to be talking about that next week, and we think that it makes sense to go into that episode because I think arriving to this point to where we're able to do something like that over there, everything that we've done, and all of this story that we told from from going back to the beginning, and what helped us to lay the foundation, our outlook, and just our camaraderie, and just our common outlook, for
Right.
lack of a better way of putting it, has led us to this place that I think and has positioned us to be able to embark on what it is that we
Yes.
are about to embark on. And so we're going to talk about that in depth next week. We're going to talk about South Africa and what we're looking to do there.
Yes.
And so, yeah. So you got any other thing that you're thinking about right now? Or what you think about the first podcast episode with getting this knocked out, and where we getting ready to go with this thing? How you feel about it?
I think it went well. I will say I was slightly nervous coming on, for the first time, because again, it's not something that I've done before. So I think as we were sitting here talking, then I was able to get a little bit more comfortable. So I'm definitely happy about that. But I'm just excited to be able to share our journey
Yeah.
with those out there, just to hear our story and, to learn more about who we are.
And we gonna learn something about each other too. Because you're
Yeah.
gonna say something, and I'm gonna say something that you probably wasn't expecting or didn't hear before.
Right. Or
But nevertheless.
yeah, or probably forgot about.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
That's
So
all good.
I think that, so I'm just excited for this first episode and the episodes to come.
Right.
And, again, if you, feel that what we have, to offer, that you want to hear more from us, please like, share, subscribe, put in the comments if there's different things that you want us to talk about, because we may be covering it. Please add that into the comments. If you have any questions or any clarification you want anything on, drop it in the comments. And then,
We may not give clarification. They may. You might get a really,
I mean,
I don't
but
know.
it just,
Yeah,
I'm just saying,
you
somebody may want-
might. This is the internet. You might get some crazy request that you might not be ready for.
and then you would just simply get an honest
You
answer.
just ignore it.
It just depends.
You say an honest answer.
I'm just saying, depending on, what it is they're asking, I'm not
Yeah.
saying it'll be an answer for everything. But
Right.
I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
things that we talked about,
Yeah.
how somebody may want,
Right.
that's what I'm
I get
saying
it.
with that.
I realize you speaking and you don't immerse yourself in this world. So yeah, we
yeah,
gonna let you have that. But I get your point.
Yeah.
But but I mean, I really appreciate, for anybody who's going to watch this, for us, just accepting that invitation, into our world, and hearing our perspectives, and just getting a chance to experience our dynamic and stuff like that. And I think that people they'll get something, from our podcast, and we'll see how things go. But yeah, so I'm definitely looking forward to our next episode, because
Yes.
I'm so excited about that, because we're actually in process of, we're actually making those moves now,
Right.
and the world doesn't, they're not privy to it, at least
Yeah.
at this point.
Right.
But having a chance to talk about that journey,
Yeah.
in and of itself, in hopes that it inspires others to open up their minds to it as
Right.
well, because that's a big part of what we're doing.
Right.
To look and try to plant those seeds, and like, as I like to say, put the foot in another puddle. Have your feet in multiple puddles.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, I mean, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this whole thing up, and as we like to say, at the end of the day, it's
Mel.
and me, and this has been
The
the podcast.
Podcast.
Talk to y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.